All motivation podcasts are strictly based on opinion. Any facts given should and will be backed up by a source. If a source is not given, then it should not be taken otherwise.
Now I'ma I get it until my numbers call. Till I'm just a name and a memory on my homies' wall. I be moving O's, I'm trying to just build my dough up. Till I'm just a same and my toes up.
What's up, and welcome to the newest episode of Motivation Inspired and the episode 3 of my series called Dating, Doomed or Destined. I, of course, am the host, Curtis Moore, aka Curly Mo, or you can still call me Mo. Today's episode is going to hit a lot of people in the balls. In the dating world, this has been and still is a huge factor in whether a relationship will last or not. This is probably going to get underneath some people's skin, so please just hear me out. But before I get into our episode, let me give you a little bit of health update on me. You might have to excuse me a little bit. I had surgery yesterday. They did a full biopsy on one of the knots that has been growing on one of my lymph nodes on my inner thigh. They took the complete lymph node, and it was a big surgery. Everything is good. Of course, if you hear me talk right now, that means I'm okay. I'm in a little bit of pain, and they stuck a tube down my throat, and so I kind of sound a little raspy, and I might have to take a break here or there, but I am doing okay, and hopefully they will be able to figure out within a week or so just exactly what is going on as far as my lymph nodes is concerned. Good news is I do have my blood pressure under control, so that's a good thing. And all the doctors are confirming that I will be going back to work soon. So that is some great news. God is good, and I give God all the thanks. So that is just a little health update. I'll keep you updated as we go along. I'm not planning on bowing out anytime soon by the grace of God. So y'all just keep me in your prayers. But let's get into our episode, because I'm not going to do like the last couple of episodes and go into this long thing. Just know that God is a good God. All right. Picture this. You find this amazing man or woman, whichever one you prefer. You both can hold a great conversation. The vibe is great. And so it feels so amazing. You go on your date and things are still great. Y'all vibing pretty well. The chemistry is there. Sex is amazing. And now it's time for that big moment. No, I'm not talking about proposal or anything like that. I am talking about it's time to meet the kids. That is right. It is time to meet the kids. So you go to the place, or y'all meet up wherever y'all gonna meet up with the kids, and all of a sudden, total disaster. All of a sudden, you see all these things that you wish you hadn't saw. Then again, y'all might come together and you see great things. We're going to talk about that today. Yes, that's right. Today's episode is called Man, Bump Them Kids. That is just a metaphor. Don't take me serious on that. But it's called Man, Bump Them Kids, because today, as we talk about the dating world, we're going to talk about kids and dating, because a lot of people don't want to discuss that. A lot of people get sensitive when it comes to their kids, and we're going to discuss that. A lot of relationships fall because of the relationship with the kids. We're going to talk about that today. So let's get into our episode. As I stated before, kids is a huge factor in the dating world. After so long of dating, you get to a point to where the kids are introduced if one or both party has them. When this happens, usually this can or will make or break a relationship. Now, it might not start off like that. It might not start off making or breaking or making a relationship or breaking a relationship. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it starts off right off the bat. Why does this stuff go on when other parties meet the kids? Why? Well, let's get into some reasons. We're about to get into that. Before we get into the dating aspect, let's talk about the parental aspect. And to get into that, we have to get into the growing up as a kid. Yes, the two parties that are dating were once kids themselves. Everything that you and the other parent have done will reflect on your child. You have to keep that in mind as your child grows up. So when you were a kid growing up, or when the father or the mother of the kid was growing up, they had their lives, kidless lives. They turn around and they done some things. I, as a child, done some things when I was a kid. Some of them necessary. Some of it was good. Some of it was not so good. But that takes a toll, or that is important. As I grew up, I was the type of person that was a good child, if you want to call it, or a goody two shoes. I was a nerd. And so I was very respectable of women. And a lot of times, I have, of course, I've mentioned in my past episodes, I had that hero complex where I was always trying to save these girls, and these girls would use me. And as I got older, it started happening more frequently. Also, I would turn around and get taken advantage of as a child. So how did you grow up? If you was that wild fighting type or whatever the case may be, as you were growing up, then you're going to see that again. Remember the words that some parents tell their kids. I cannot wait till you get older, because karma's a what? Yes, of course. You're going to get the same taste that I'm getting. So you got to keep that in mind as you raise your kids. You do not want to raise your kids as the type of person that, or the mistakes that you made. You don't want to do that. And of course, the kids are going to eventually have their own mindset and they're going to do it. But all of that takes in effect. So it's great, or you have to pick the right partner to have a kid with. You have to make sure of that, because if you have a kid with somebody that is not good, then expect some of those features to be part of that child as well. That's why you hear a lot of people say, I see a lot of your daddy in you. I see a lot of your mama in you. Sometimes those are good things and sometimes they aren't. But that is a part of it. Before we get into the dating aspect, we have to establish the relationship between child and parent, because this will obviously affect your dating relationship. You cannot compromise rather than discipline. And why I say that, if you're trying to raise your kids, you have to raise your kid to be respectable. A lot of the problem today with kids and parents and dating is that these parents these days want to compromise with their kid. They look at it as they don't want to discipline their kids because it hurts them to whoop them, or it hurts them to see them sad, or they think about how they grew up and their parents was to them. And sometimes the parents was just being a disciplinary person towards them, and they don't want to do the same thing with their kids. Sometimes parents was abusive, which is understandable that you don't want to be like that. The bottom line is you can't compromise with your kids. You have to discipline them. You have to be a parent, not their friend. Well, I'm not my kid's friend, but do your kids listen and respect you? Did you instill in them that respect and discipline? I see a lot of parents nowadays, or young parents, let their kids just cuss, and they cuss around them, let them listen to music where they're too young, they don't understand that music. Yet they're sitting here singing every single bit of it. All that stuff. All that stuff matters. And then when they get older, you turn around and try to get them to do something, they don't want to listen. And you wonder, well, why aren't they listening to me? Well, maybe it's because you were being so light on them then and spoiling them and doing all that before. Now they don't want to listen. So what's the problem? That is the problem. You can't compromise with your kid. There's a difference between compromising and discipline. There's a difference between talking with your kid and, having fun with them, and then turning around and showing them that you are still their parent. And that's what you have got to do today. You have got to show your kids that you are still their parent. Because once they're old enough to come into their own, old enough to have their own mindset, it's over. They're going to have that mindset. If they're 14, 15 years old, well, now they're starting early, 11 and 12 years old. You can't sit here and try to be a disciplinary parent then. You can, but it'll be a lot harder than if you start when they're kids. You got to be an example to them. Or you got to make a hard decision. And we'll get into that later on. How you raise your kids from birth will also determine how they will respect your date. How you raise your kid will determine how they will respect the person that you're dating. That sounds crazy, but it's true. If they don't respect you, you think they're going to respect the person that you bring in? You got to keep that in mind. To your partner, it matters no matter what they say. A lot of partners sit there and make it like, oh, it's okay. How they are, it's okay. I can deal with it. But it just depends on how your kids treat them. If your kids are disrespectful to you, they're going to be disrespectful to your partner. And even though your partner is in it for the long run, or at least in their mind, they might be in it for the long run, they only can take so much. And same vice versa. You only can take so much of how a kid acts towards you before it starts making it more of a problem. And if your relationship is not strong enough, if your confidence is not strong enough, then it can break your relationship. So you got to be careful with how your kids treat you and your partner. Now, kids that respect their parents, whether they like their partner or not, if they respect their parents, they will respect their partner. simply because their parent, they have respect for the parent. They love their parent enough to respect what they have. Now that ain't the case all the time, and it may not be 100%, but they will have more respect for that partner as they respect you. But if they're disrespectful to you, then 9 times out of 10, they're going to be more disrespectful towards the partner. And it's going to make it hard. Now, I am talking on the terms of if a kid or if partners have kids already. That is what I'm talking about as far as dating is concerned. So, you got to discipline your kids. You can't treat them like they are your friend. You got to discipline them ahead of time. Now, if you know that your kids are disrespectful and you know that you're dating, then you got to do something to make them respect you. You got to do something to make them respect you. Now, 9 times out of 10, kids that are below the age of 10 is going to just be kids. You got to keep that in mind. Now, if you're dating somebody, like in one situation I was in, I was dating somebody that had a newborn. So, and it had been a while since I had a newborn at that time. So it made a difference. You can't go out like you want to. You don't have babysitters like you want to. So that makes a difference. So you want to make sure you choose a partner that's going to respect that aspect of it. Now, when you start getting on into the teenagers, when you have teenagers, then it's time to sit down and have a conversation. Now, if you have respectable teenagers, then like I said, they're going to respect your partner because they respect you. But if you don't, then you need to have a talk with your partner before you introduce them to the kids. Because it's going to make a difference. You can't just put that on somebody. And that's why it's always good to get to know your partner and how they grew up before you bring in kids. Always make sure that before you let your partner meet your kids and you meet their kids, you get their history, your partner's history, and your partner gets your history. How did y'all grow up? That's why it's important to get to know each other before bringing them onto that. I have came across a lot of times to where I didn't get to know my partner enough. I didn't get to know my partner enough. So when it came down to meeting their family, it kind of surprised me. So you always want to make sure you get the details of how somebody grew up and make sure that that's something that you can deal with. And you also want to let them know how you grew up. Because a lot of how you grew up and how they grew up is going to make a difference in how that household is going to be. If you was around family that does a lot of cussing and drinking and stuff and you never been around that, you got to prepare yourself for that. If you're around a huge Christian family, a family that is tight and close-knit, then you're going to have to get used to that if you never had a close, tight-knit family. I have dated a lot of people where the family wasn't close, where they had an issue with an aunt or cousin or whatever, this side of family, that side of family, blase, blase. But my family, on the other hand, is a close-knit family. Yeah, we have arguments and fights like anybody else, but then when we get together, we're together. We're big time. We have fun. It's always like a party. I don't mean like drinking and smoke, all that type of party. I'm talking about we laugh and joke and all that stuff. And there's a lot of people that envies that because they don't have that. So it's always great to learn how somebody has grown up, and you got to teach them that, or you got to let them know how you grew up. All right, I'm gonna take me a break, and when I come back, I'm gonna finish talking about them kids. So y'all listen, or y'all stay tuned, and we'll be right back with Motivation Inspired. Welcome back, y'all, to Man Bump Them Kids, where we're talking about how kids affect your dating. And we're just going to jump right back into it. How your kids treat and respect you will determine a lot about how your kids will eventually treat and respect your partner. This may not be the case all of the time, but for the most part. And as I stated earlier, if your kids respect you, they're going to treat your partner with respect more than if they are disrespectful to you. But if they act like they don't care, it doesn't matter what you say to them. If they act like they don't care, then that's going to be the case with your partner. Now, if you've had kids by someone else and you're bringing someone else in as your new partner, then how can you expect them to be able to tell your kids anything to do if they don't respect you? Now, you got to keep that in mind. So train your kids to be respectful, not only to you, but to whoever you bring in their life. Now, at the same time, if you're constantly bringing different people into their lives, then that is not a good situation either. How can they respect that? Because they might in their brain think, oh, well, she'll have somebody next month, or she'll have somebody in a couple of months or in a couple of weeks. So you got to be careful with who you bring around your kids and how often you bring someone around your kids. Take your time, get to know somebody before you bring them around your kids. Now, if your kids treat you with a lot of love, then that means that they respect you, and they're probably going to show your partner some type of love. Now, again, this is not the case all of the time, because what I'm supposed to get into next also takes effect. If your kids are very partial towards the other parent, that takes a lot of effect too. What also has effect on a relationship is the relationship with the kids and the other parent. Sometimes kids hide it or try to put up a wall, but there are some effects regardless. Now, if you are a man and you're dating another woman and you have a daughter and your daughter's real partial towards your mother, then your daughter is probably not going to like the other woman very well. But normally it's if a woman is dating someone and the woman has a daughter, then they might not be so partial towards a male. And vice versa. If a man is dating another woman and you have a son that's partial towards their other mother or their own mother, then it's going to be kind of hard for them to be respectful of that woman in some cases. So you got to be careful with that. You got to be careful with how your kids feel about the other parent. And you can't just bring somebody else into their lives. It's always best to have a conversation on both ends. You got to communicate with your kids and you got to communicate with your partner. And at the same time, you got to be careful if the hardest part is when you and the child's parent have split up right away. That's going to be one of the hardest parts because if the kid has been around both parents and both parents done split up, it's hard for that kid to accept somebody else being in their life. It's hard. Even if the relationship was bad and toxic and combustible, it's still hard. I remember my own situation whenever me and my daughter's mom split up. My daughter was really young when it happened. My daughter seen us interacting as she grew up. And then it got to a point to where eventually we kind of checked out the scene on that again. It kind of came across for a little while. And my daughter was so excited, and then it fell apart. And in the back of my daughter's head, she still wants to see her mom and her dad be together. But sometimes that's not the best thing. Sometimes it's better for a child when the parents aren't together because it could be two combustible elements. So then right after that, it made it hard on me dating somebody else. So you got to be careful in that situation. Some kids are okay. My daughter wasn't that bad when I started dating someone else, and when her mother started dating someone else, she wasn't that bad off. But you have a lot of kids where the child doesn't like the other person that the parent is dating. So you got to be careful. So have a conversation with your partner about your kids and your partner's kids. Then also sit down with your own kids and let that partner sit down with their own kids and have a conversation. Don't just pop up and say, oh, this is so-and-so. You lose a lot of respect when you do that. So you got to be careful with that. Kids may come with the package, but they are not the determining factor in a relationship. You are. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter how they act. You will be the determining factor on if your relationship is going to last or not. It's just like in the movies. You start dating someone, and then all of a sudden you bring them to meet the kids. And then the kids are disastrous. Not in all cases, this is just an example. But the kids are disastrous. And the parent is in love with this person, and the kids are causing a lot of problems. And eventually that partner can't handle it. Something happens and triggers, and that partner is out of that parent's life. And here's that parent is not the same anymore. They're sad. And in some movies, the kids will see that and it be a happy ending. And in some movies, the parent realizes and they have to let the kid go and blase, blase. This is real life. The fact is, you are the determining factor. Do not let your kids determine your happiness. That just means that you have to take a stand and that you have to make a hard decision. Now, if that partner is not good for you and the kids, that's a different story. You have to make that decision. But it is not up to the kids and it is not up to the partner. It is up to you. Well, partially it's not up to the partner. You got to make that decision. You don't want your kids ruling your life. Because at the end of the day, once they're grown and maybe they'll get out of the house and they're on their own, you're left alone. You have to make that decision. And sometimes God brings people into your life to make you a better person. And the devil will use your kids to try to tarnish that. Because, and I know there might be some listeners that doesn't believe in God and all that stuff. And if you don't, then just, it is what it is. The devil doesn't like family. Why do you think everything is so twisted nowadays? Why do you think men are more feminine and females is more male? I mean, why do you think that? Why do you think these kids being brought up like that? How many full family homes that are functional is left in the U.S.? It's being played on TV and movies, on social media. All this stuff is being exposed to destroy families. All because parents won't take a stand. So you have got to take a stand. And when I say you, I'm not just talking about everybody else. I'm talking about me too. You have got to take a stand and say, this is what it's going to be like. I am taking control of my life. It is you that decides whether you're going to let your kids determine the outcome of your dating world. It's on you. If you allow your kids to destroy your relationship, it is on you. If you allow your kids to let you lose that good woman or that good man in your life, it is on you. You can't turn around and blame that other person because, even though the other person didn't sign up for it and is supposed to take the package as is, it is not on them. And there's a lot of prideful parents out there that will turn around and let their kids do that. And in their mind, they're thinking, well, he wasn't the one. Well, she wasn't the one. Maybe that person was one, but you allow your kids to run that person off. All because you didn't want to take a stand. All because they're my kids. They're my kids. I put my kids first. Nowadays, things are so twisted because things are so out of whack. It is supposed to be God, man and woman, then the kids. Then you have parents that are taking care of grown kids. When the kids is supposed to get to a certain age, they're supposed to go out. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I act like a child, but when I became man or woman, I put away childish things. It's time for them to go. You done your job. Now it's their turn. There's nothing wrong if your kids fall, and there was a time where I fell and I had to go back to my mother for a short period of time. But once I got on my feet, I had to go. Had to go. So you got to do the same for your kids when they get to a certain age. When it boils down to it, you have got to make tough decisions regarding your own happiness. This may include reevaluating your environment, the people around you, and or your comfort zone. But it will all fall on you. This means you may have to make a compromise between your kids and your partner. You got to change stuff. You got to change the environment. You might have to move. If your partner lives in a certain area or whatever, live long distance or whatever, for you to be happy, you might have to move away from what's causing you not to. Because people are nosy and people try to make you understand where their point is. But as I said in my last podcast, everybody is not the same. Every relationship is not the same. And it goes for as a parent and kids. You cannot raise your kids how I raise my kids and vice versa. My advice on how it happened with my kids, but that doesn't mean it'll work for your kids. So sometimes you got to move away, change your environment. Sometimes you got to close shop and move into another home. Sometimes you got to get people out of your home. If your kids are grown and they don't respect you, sometimes you got to tell them, hey, you got to go. Sometimes you got to do that. Well, I don't want to put my kids out. Or are they trying to leave? Are they trying to move on? Or are they trying to work off of you? I've seen it. I've dealt with it before. I mean, sometimes you got to change the people you're around. Sometimes you have friends or so-called friends or associates that will turn around and tell you to do something, and it may not be the right thing to do. You got to learn to compromise. If your partner is telling you this over and over again, that means it's starting to affect them. So you got to come to a compromise. If your kids is causing problems, you got to come to a compromise. If your partner is causing problems with the kids, you have got to discuss a compromise. You've got to. Because a lot of times the kids ain't the problem. A lot of time it is the partner. And that's what I was going to get into next. Don't get so caught up into not being alone that you overlook what's best for you and the kids. Just because you get the partner that you want doesn't mean that the partner is good for you and the kids. Now, that doesn't mean that the partner has to be some kind of rapist or anything like that. Sometimes it's just that you and the partner don't work. But there are a lot of people, and I've heard it over and over again. I've had girls tell me, I just don't want to be alone. Well, if you can't be alone, you can't be with somebody else. Because a person is not supposed to validate you. You're supposed to validate yourself. And if you can't be around you by yourself, how are you going to expect somebody else to want to be around you? Ooh, that's going to hurt some people. I had to learn that. I kept wanting to have a woman. I kept wanting to feel a body next to me. I kept wanting to have somebody that I can love on and kiss on and have sex with and stuff. And when I was alone, I felt like that I couldn't be like that. So I started talking to any and everybody. I didn't have no boundaries and no standards. And all that did was getting me into worse and worse situations. And there's a lot of people that is like that, and they're in bad situations all because they don't want to be alone. This affects your kids as well. So you have got to make the hard decisions. You have got to see if your partner is worth it. Now, there are partners that will secretly beat on your kids and do bad things to your kids. And there are partners that will treat your kids differently than they treat their kids, or treat your kids differently when you're not around. If a partner can't treat your kids as much respect as he does you or as she does you, then you do not want to be with them. Learn to be by yourself and then learn to date. And that's the way to respect your kids. And I'm about out of time. I always try to time myself. As I said similarly in the beginning, don't let your kids determine where your relationship goes. You to make that determination. That's what you do. Make the determination. Don't let a good thing dissolve all because your kids don't want it to work. Your kids can't get their way. Your kids can't have your time that person is taking up. Your kids is mad because you're making changes for the better because you're with somebody else. Don't let them determine that. Make that tough decision because in this dating world, that's why I said doomed or destined. It's very hard to find a compatible partner. And I can say good, but it's hard to find a compatible one. Someone that is going to be there just as much as you. Because nowadays in this dating world, you don't have a lot of that. You're finding people jumping from one person to the next because one little thing and they're out the door. And kids is a major part because you put your kids value above anybody else's. Your job as a parent is supposed to be teach and train the kids until they're old enough to do for them. When they get to a certain age, it's on them, not you. All you're supposed to do from then on out is guide them. Help them where they need help. But you supposedly done your job. Or if you didn't do your job, don't let your kids determine your relationship. All right. Announcements. I have a computer now. It's a work computer. It's not mine, but it's a work computer. So what I will be trying to do is I'm going to try to see if I can get a video podcast going. And if I do, I want to launch my wrestling podcast. I want to launch it. I have a slightly different platform. And I want to launch it. I'm very excited about it. I have had ideas in my brain about it, and I don't know how it's going to work. And all I can do is try. And if it fails, it fails. This podcast has got some followers. It don't got a lot, but I'm praying to God and allowing God to put that together and let it go. So if you're hearing this, please share it with people. Tell them to join. Tell them to sign up. Give me their opinion or tell them to send me their opinion. I know I just don't got like this tremendous voice, but trust me, you're going to want to continue to do this. I'm telling you, you're going to want to continue to listen. So share with people, please. If you like what I'm talking about, get other people involved so they can give me their opinion. Tell them to join my Facebook page, Motivation Nation. They can look it up in the search engine. It'll pop up. It's an LLC. Motivation Nation. Tell them to join, please. The YouTube binge song of the week is a gospel song. This song I sing in my church. It's been around for a long time. It's just been dwelling in my soul. It is called With God, I'm Satisfied by the Gospel Keynotes. With God, I'm Satisfied by the Gospel Keynotes. So listen to it. Tell me what you think. If gospel is really not your thing, I do apologize. Just wait till the next podcast, and maybe it'll be a binge song that you'll like. But I always tell people to listen to them. I binge out on songs. All right, and the next podcast that I'm going to talk about, or the next episode I'm going to talk about in the Dating, Doomed or Destined series, is going to be real juicy. And I'm letting you know now, do not let the kids listen to it, because it is going to be explicit, it's going to be detailed, and it's going to get to deep points. It is called Let's Talk About Sex, Baby. That's right. Let's talk about sex. We're going to talk about sex as far as the dating world and in general. And we're not going to hold anything back. It is going to be rated R/X. We're going to get detailed. Well, I'm just going to say that now just to be on the safe side. I don't know how detailed it's going to be, but it's going to be good. So you do not want to miss this next podcast. Go ahead, tell all your friends, tell them to lock and load and share and listen, because that's what we're going to talk about. Let's talk about sex. And my time been up, but I just had to get that stuff in. So thank you for joining Motivation Inspired, and I hope that you have a blessed day, and I hope that I can continue to inspire and motivate your life one more time.